Hello everybody, Trevor here. The classic series is actually my most favorite series in the Thomas franchise. When I was a toddler, I was introduced to Thomas by watching every single VHS my parents bought me at the time. Sure, there was Shine Time Station that I briefly watched on Fox Family, but I mainly grew up with the Thomas episodes individually on VHS. Not that I don't like Shine Time Station, I think it's a great show. I just prefer to watch the Thomas episodes alone because they are short and sweet. But like all good eras of a show, it does have a few duds, so that's why I'm making a top 5 least favorite classic episodes in Thomas and Friends. There are probably a few more I don't like, but these are a close second. Now without further ado, let's begin. Number 5 goes to the Old Bridge, aka the Old Iron Bridge in the US. As much as I like Skarloey, but I really hate it when he converts from an older and wiser engine to a younger, gullible, cowardly, and immature one. You may think that Season 9 was the start of that trend, but it was actually Season 7. Sure, the story is alright, but if you're gonna make a character act like this, couldn't you just make an entirely new character to fit this role? Like I said, Skarloey is supposed to be an older and wiser engine, not a younger and stupid one. But on the other hand, it does have a nice message about handling your fears, so that's why it gets the number 5 spot on this list. Number 4, Rusty to the Rescue. I'll be honest, I used to really enjoy this episode a lot as a kid, mainly for its suspense and action. I also like the sets in this episode like the Bluebell branch line as well as the downtown part of Vickerstown. But looking back at it now, I can understand why the Reverend Wilbur Audrey doesn't like this episode because, in the real world, Stepney was saved by the Bluebell Railway staff, not Rusty. And also, how was Rusty able to go to the scrapyards in one day? That just doesn't make any sense. In addition, how does Rusty know about Douglas saving Oliver from scrap? Did someone tell him about this? However, I have a theory that Burlcroft made this episode because she probably wanted more action and to give Rusty a chance to shine in the spotlight. Also, she probably thought that the original Bluebells of England story was a bit too dark for children's show standards. That's understandable, but at the same time, if you want to adapt a character that's based on real life, you need to be as accurate as possible. Otherwise, you will upset the Reverend himself. Number 3, Middle Engine. When it comes to Season 6, this would probably be my least favorite episode of that season because it's kind of dangerous to have an engine be in the middle of a train when they are supposed to be in front. Also, I don't really like the part where Sir Topham Hatt accuses Percy for going onto the tipper at the coaling plant, when in reality, it was just an accident caused by Henry. If there's one thing I like about this episode, it would be the fact that Ari and Bert returned in this particular one. And that's a nice touch because they are pretty good antagonists. But everything else is just trash. I mean, how come Ari and Bert didn't get punished for what they did to the engines? Number 2, What's the Matter with Henry? This one, in my opinion, is my least favorite episode of Season 7 because Thomas and Percy should know better than to tease Henry about his boiler ache. And to make matters worse, they asked the coaling plant manager to make him take more coal trucks. I mean, come on! Henry is freaking ill! He should not be allowed to work today. Also, why couldn't Henry ask Sir Topham Hatt to have a day off? I mean, I know that engines are supposed to do as they are told and not to argue, but if I were sick, I'd need to be honest and ask for a day off. If there are a couple things I like about this episode, it would be the fact that Emily was kind enough to help Henry out. And she knows that being ill is no laughing matter. And at least Thomas and Percy got what they deserved at the end. Otherwise, this episode is just depressing. Before I get to my number 1 pick, here are some honorable and dishonorable mentions. Henry's Forest. I actually love this episode because of its nice message about taking care of the environment. And it just goes to show you that Henry isn't always a grumpy old engine. He can also be kind and caring, especially with his favorite forest. I know the Reverend Wilbur Audrey doesn't like this episode, but I still believe it has a very special place in my heart. A big day for Thomas, aka Thomas's train in the UK. I know a lot of people don't like this episode and that they consider it the worst of season 1, but for me, I can't help but love it for nostalgic reasons. I mean, I always find it pretty funny that Thomas was chuffing along the track without realizing his passengers were left behind. Yeah, sometimes Thomas can be a bit of an idiot, but at least he didn't know better at the time. Rusty saves the day. Not only that the title itself is a ripoff of Rusty to the Rescue, but the fact that they made Rusty work at the quarry instead of maintenance. Also, the Scarlet Railway was one of the most popular tourist attractions on Sodor, so why did it need to close? But the reason I didn't put this on the list was because it got beat out by Middle Engine, which in my opinion is the worst of Season 6. And I do like the parts where the narrow gauge engines and Elizabeth work together to repair the line, so therefore, I consider this one a guilty pleasure. Buffer Bother. Don't get me wrong, this episode is bad mainly because Bill was being a whiny brat throughout the episode. But I did include this one on the list because, at the very least, I didn't have to hear Alec Baldwin's annoying impressions for Bill and Ben from Season 5 again. Also, the silver buffers on Ben do look nice, but sadly, they didn't reappear again afterwards. In addition, I even like the parts where Bill's cheeks turn green with envy and sneezes at one point. And once again, it got beat out by Middle Engine. Gordon and the Gremlin. This is another honorable mention because I enjoyed Alec Baldwin's impression for Dowager Hat because it sounds a lot like Keith Wickham's voice for the character. Also, I like Gremlin the Dalmatian because I'm a dog lover. But unfortunately, we don't get to see him again after this episode. And the number one least favorite classic episode of Thomas and Friends is Thomas and Percy's Mountain Adventure. Also known as Thomas and Percy's Christmas Adventure in the UK, this is actually my least favorite episode in the entirety of the classic model era. There are so many reasons why. It was originally a Christmas episode in the UK, but they turned it into a Thanksgiving Day episode in the US. And because of that, they had the nerve to cut out the Santa bit in the episode. Look, I know they did this for Shine Time Station purposes, but the fact is, Sodor is a British island, not an American island, and they don't celebrate Thanksgiving in the UK. And to make matters worse, there are some VHS and DVD releases that have the deleted scene while George Carlin's narration goes out of sync. What the hell? Do you think kids in America won't notice? Heck, I was a dumb little kid when this episode came out, and even I can tell that Sodor is not an American island. And that most of the characters are British designs. Not to mention that even the sound effects and music instrumentals don't match up sometimes in this version. Don't get me wrong, the story itself was great, but in terms of being the most heavily edited episode in the entire classic series, it really grinds my gears. And that's why I hate this one the most. Well, that was my top 5 least favorite classic episodes video. I hope you've enjoyed it. And if you like these episodes or still like them, that's perfectly understandable, because I enjoyed them too, at first. But looking back at them now, I can see their flaws. And as bad as some of these episodes are, I still take them over any of the upcoming reboot episodes any day because at least they had nicer settings and consistent character designs. And furthermore, I still consider these old episodes nostalgic because they were from my childhood. So that's why I don't want to hate them too much. Oh, and let me know which top 5 or 10 video I should do next. Here are some options. This is Trevor Davis, signing off.